We respectfully acknowledge the Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei people of Tāmaki Makaurau as the traditional custodians of the land in which this video was filmed.
Hi, I'm Crystal Kinsella. I'm a proud Jawoyn and Wiradjuri woman, a supplier diversity expert and published author. Welcome to Meet the Mob, a YouTube and podcast series dedicated to showcasing Black excellence in Indigenous business. Here I get to interview deadly First Nation business owners from around the country and learn about their why. Tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings to all and welcome to this special edition, Meet the Mob Aotearoa. In this special edition, I'm joined by Māori and Pacifica businesses from across New Zealand. Today, I'm joined with Pera Davies from Shear Jitsu Wellness, who will share with us his why he got into business and why he does what he does. So let's kick it off. So hey Pera, lovely to meet you.
Kia ora.
Welcome to Meet the Mob. Tell us who you are, who's your mob?
Kia ora. Crystal, thank you very much for this opportunity, especially for a little businessman like me. But my father comes about 2 hours north of here, Ngāpui, a place called Poroti, Pipiwai, and my mother, the Ngāpui, I'll just speak about my iwi, they fighters, and they got the fighting spirit in them, and they the resistance. So I'm very passionate about my iwi. My other iwi is Ngāti Kahanunu, ki Heratonga, and that's down in Hastings. It's about 3 hours south of here, and that's where I grew up. I grew up on our marae, Korongota, and my hapu was Ngāti Pōporo. The biggest thing about living in my hapu is my marae and my urupā, because at one stage I'm going to be living in that urupā for the rest of my life, so it's a very important place for me.
Most definitely. And I bet there's a long legacy that will live on beyond you as well. So let's talk a little bit about your business and your why. Like, why this business?
Well, it first started, it happened in the early 80s, in about 85, 86. I started suffering really bad back injuries, and I was only 25, and I couldn't go to work, and I suffered a wee bit of depression, as you do, and that kind of thing. And so I went to a lot of doctors and all of that, and a lot of it wasn't working, and I'm quite a fussy person. Quite particularly, I wanted to be the fastest shearer in the world, and this was holding me up. Started doing my own research into helping myself, and I followed medical science, and I followed the science of shearing, and I developed a technique to prevent the injury, and the technique worked that well. I was able to, 2 years later, after getting over my injury, I was able to go for a world record, and the world record I went for is the 9-hour Strong U record, which is the Mount Everest of shearing. Everyone wants to be that. Everyone wants to call themselves the fastest shearer in the world, and I'm no different. And up to this point, I used to be counted on one hand of how many shearers have actually went for this record. Yeah. There's probably 10. I was on one hand, but I might be on 11 now. So there's very few actually people go for this record. It's an elite record, and I was able to handle my injuries and put myself in a position. But I missed out by one. I missed out by 46 seconds over a 9-hour day.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the beast when you want to be a world champion.
Well, you've got to be in it to win it. And I've actually climbed Mount Everest earlier this year, so I can imagine what you were putting yourself up against in this type of competition. So let's just go back a step before the business. Like, why shearing? How did you get into that as a trade?
Well, my family are all shearers, fourth generation shearers. My grandmother was the shearer's cook, and she looked after all the kids while my parents, and I got 14 aunties and uncles while they were all working. So I was brought up in a shearing environment, and it was a very loving, I was brought up in a very loving environment where we focus on the collective, not on the individual. We were led by our uncles. At the moment now, my brother has taken over the mantle of chairman of our family trust to keep that going. Yeah. So we have a close family ties in shearing. And when I went for the record, my uncles were very happy about me.
That's good.
And I made them happy, and that made me happy,
Yeah. Totally.
Simple things.
Totally. So, you know, you've probably had a history now that's spanned 30 years in this industry, but you've come in to develop this technology. So this was the solution behind helping your injury?
It was, and
Talk to us about it.
it was. So when I fixed myself, I knew it worked because I was able to go for a world record. And so I approached the New Zealand Shearing Contractors Association in New Zealand. I says, look, mate, I got a really good idea of looking after our bodies, you know, longevity, you know, and health and wellness and all of that. And the president pretty much told me I was mad. He said, you're mad. So I wouldn't give up because I knew it worked. So I contacted Te Puni Kokiri. And Te Puni Kokiri are there to help people like myself, Māori, want to get into business. A mentor to help me, and his name was Amotai Sinclair. And Tāmai came to my house and he says, Pera, what can I do for you? And I says, well, New Zealand think I'm mad, Tāmai, so I want to go to Australia. And he says, right. He said, the first thing we need to do is find a mad Australian.
Oh, there's plenty of
And I feel, oh yeah, well that should be all right. And I did. I found one. And going by New Zealand standards, he was a lunatic. But he happened to be the shearing development officer for a multi-billion-dollar corporation in Australia. And he actually loved everything that I was telling him through email content and through what Tāmai were doing. He actually loved it. And he rang me and he says, look, mate, I've got to come and see it. I've got to come and see it. I've got to see it firsthand, what you do. So I set up a meeting and he did. He jumped in a plane and he flew over. And so I took him out to the meeting. He signed an NDA. We had a yarn and I showed the technique. And the technique actually only takes 15 seconds.
Wow.
But the reason he was so interested in shearing, the hardest part of shearing, you've got the farmer who spends 12 months growing the sheep.
Yeah.
And then it comes into the shed and a shearer spends 3 minutes taking the wool off, and then it goes into manufacturing, so there's no more physical labour. But in that 3-minute window for shearing, I found a 15-second window where actually all of the injuries occur. Every precursor to every injury that happened to shearers is done in a 15-second window.
Yeah.
So rather than change the whole 3 minutes, I got a job changing 15 seconds. So they paid me very well to go around Australia to change the way that people deliver sheep for shearing and reduce the injuries in shearing. And
that's pretty incredible. Like, you must be really proud to be able to identify that. I mean, and that can only come from your own lived experience. But have you stopped to consider, like, you've developed a technology that's able to help and fulfill, I guess, prevention for future injuries for people in this industry?
Yeah, no, I'm really passionate about it. 90% of the wool handlers are Māori. 70% of the shearers are Māori.
Wow.
It's all Māori, you know, like, there's nothing better if I could have an opportunity to help Māori. Luckily for me, when I went to Australia, half the shearers over there are Kiwis, and more than half of them are Māori. So, like, I'm back into the game, you know, doing exactly.
Māori in Australia, tell you about it.
Yeah, so And so the Australian corporation unleashed me to change 15 seconds. So, you know, when you're looking at workplace injuries, sometimes it's not actually where you think it is. Yeah. But if you understand biodynamics of your body, you should be able to track down that injury just following the anatomical pathway of your own injury. You should be able to find that what's causing that injury in any industry. Yeah. And I believe there's no doubt about that. I found a 15-second window in shearing that no one's looking at, that no one's even considering. They're just thinking the shearing of the sheep is where the injuries, but it's not. So people need to just reassess. But that only happened to me because I'd get better, then I'd go back to work, and then I'd get hurt again. Yeah. I was just repeating that same cycle, so I had to break that cycle.
So do you think that this technology and what you do has any applicability to other industries outside shearing?
Oh, absolutely. Like,
here's your big plug opportunity.
Yeah, well,
Who do you want to work with?
Shearers are my best friends, and I love them dearly, but they're bloody hopeless in trying to help themselves, eh? You know, even What upsets me a lot is there's two training organisations in New Zealand, and they're both Pākehā run, and they don't understand the dynamics of Māori in the workplace.
Yeah.
You know, there's different ways you can do things.
Yeah, there's lots of cultural nuances about how Māori with Māori and Indigenous, how we relate and
That's it.
get
And
taught.
I learned that off the Australian Wool Innovations, the corporation that I work with. They like farmers talking to farmers. They like shearers talking to shearers. And you'll always find someone with the qualifications, with the sufficient qualifications so that a shearer can talk to a shearer. You know, if you took a physio or a big flat person into a shearing shed, not many shearers will get it. But if you get someone on their own level, talking to them at their own level, regardless of what the industry is, you'll get it. And I definitely believe in every industry where injuries happen, they can be tracked down.
Yeah.
Usually from the workers themselves, and just through a conversation, asking the right questions.
So is there any particular industries that you're looking to target?
I'd love to target people who sit in desks.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work in that. Like I said, I worked 3 years face-to-face with shearers on a daily basis. And that gets, you know, that stimulated me for a while, but now more my interest now is people who sit at desks.
So many office workers or workers from home, and I reckon people that work from home are more prone to have injuries because their ergonomics might not be the same if
Yes.
they were, you know, an office.
You know, and back injuries, they're specific. There's the reason why they happen. And you can find them down, you know, like physios. I think physios are partially used by, especially in the workplace, they talk about musculoskeletal injuries. Well, that's only a fraction of the injuries that you'll suffer. You know, you got myofascial injuries, which is within the muscle fibres, like trigger points.
Yeah.
Trigger points is a myofascial injury, not a musculoskeletal. And they need different ways to treat it, and that's why I came up with a SFC, because part of it is stretch, flex, and circulate.
Stretch, flex and circulate. Love
Those
it.
are the three words that you need to maintain a good health, good circulation.
Yeah. So where to from here for you? Like, what does the future hold? What are you hoping to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I've still got a day job, still shearing. We're shearing actually prelim shearing merinos in the snow at the moment. Wow. I'll be back there in a couple of days. But yeah, I really want to show that the thing about workplace injuries and the people that I work with, they're all breadwinners. All the shearers that I work for are breadwinners. They put the food on the table, you know, and when one of them falls over, it's the whole family that falls over. So you kind of feel, because these are my people, you know, like shearers are me.
You don't want to have that downtime. No, not at all.
No, people don't like having downtime. You know, when you have a couple of days off, the boys there, and the missus are scratching their eyes out, they want to hurry up and go back to work. So, no, people really want to work. It's just that with injuries and that, they can't work. And with workplace injuries, if you're the breadwinner and you can't go to work, everything stops, and then you get arguments and you get lots of things. And I know that for a fact. You know.
So this can prevent people from having that time out. It can go a long way.
And also the thing is, when you're treating back pain, neck pain, and shoulder pain, it has to feel good. That the person using it has got to have a win. You know, lots of times when I was going through my back troubles, the worst thing that I ever felt was walking out of a physio's office thinking that was just a waste of time, and I've got another 10 more weeks of this, and and that's why I kept on going home after these treatments. And what was that all about? And then that's when I realised you got to start doing things for yourself, and that's when I started doing things for myself.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, have you got a final message for my listeners, for my viewers on the program? Like, what would you want to say to them that you think is really important?
The key to healing is getting over stress, because if you're in a stress state, you're not going to heal. That's just a fact. Whether it's a hormonal stress, physical stress, emotional stress. So when you're using the Rollinator and the other tools that I've developed, you feel good immediately.
Yeah.
And that means you're going to use it again. It's one of those things that it does. It makes you want to use it again. And like if it didn't work, you wouldn't want to use it. So you've got to develop a treatment that works straight away, works immediately to give that person confidence. Because if anyone who's been suffering back pain, they've probably been suffering it for a few years now, and it's starting to hit the fan and things are starting to hurt. 85% of the world is going to suffer a back injury at some time. So if you use this, you've got an 85% chance of not suffering a back pain.
I love that. So SFC again, stretch.
Flex and circulate.
And circulate. There you go.
Oh, and the Rollinator.
And Rollinator. SFC Rollinator.
Yeah, and one day if my dreams are big, that'll be all made out of wool.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
100% made out of wool from our shearing.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great pleasure to learn a little bit more about your story. And I wish you all the best.
So thank you very much for the opportunity, Crystal.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Meet the Mob Aotearoa. Make sure you share it around your network and stay tuned for our next episode.